Hello, welcome to Mr. Paul's Pantry. I'm Mr. Paul, and my recipe today is for something very, very simple, but very, very useful. It's an onion gravy. Now, there are many times we want gravy when we're not having a roast piece of meat. That's normally what the gravy is made from, the remains of the roasting tin. But many times we want a bit of gravy to go onto a pie, whether we've purchased it or bought it, or onto sausage and mash, or onto Yorkshire puddings, anything like that. So I'm going to show you how to make a traditional English onion gravy. Right, here are the ingredients we need for making the onion gravy. Now, I'm only making a small quantity because it's just for myself. If you want to double this, then just double the recipe or treble it, depends how big the family is. First of all, I'm using one medium-sized onion. Sometimes I will add a half a teaspoonful of sugar. I'm not quite sure about that yet. We'll see when we start making it. So that's one medium-sized onion, 15 grams of butter. Unsalted or salted makes no difference. Half a tablespoonful of oil, that's really in there just to prevent the butter burning. A tablespoonful of plain flour. 500 millilitres of stock, beef stock I'm using. Now you can use fresh if you make it. I do sometimes, I don't always have it. But you can also buy cartons these days, ready-made beef stock in supermarkets, which is very good indeed. Or you can make up a stock cube and measure out the 500 mils from that. Also, I'm using some black pepper. I'm not adding any salt into this, simply reason, I may at the end, but simple reason I know why I'm not adding salt is my beef stock has already got some salt in it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, depends where you buy it. And I'll see at the back there, I've got a bottle of cider vinegar. Now, it's a very, very tiny splash of that. If you haven't got cider vinegar, put a squeeze of lemon or a shake of Worcester sauce. It makes no difference. So those are the ingredients. Let's get on with making the gravy. Now, before we start, a nice little tip. If you put a damp cloth on your work surface before you put your cutting board on top, you won't get any sliding about. It's very, very firm. That's most important. Now we come to the onion. Now, lots of people have problems with onions. I'm not quite sure why, but the way I do it, probably not the way everybody does it, and probably not the correct way, lots of people are going to tell me. But anyway, I'm going to take the top off it there and the bottom off it there. And then I'm going to cut it in half, top to bottom, like that. Once I've done that, I'm going to then proceed to peel it. And you can do it with your fingers or poke it off with a sharp knife. It's very easy to peel that way. And if you do it this way, you don't get any waste. Just take the outer one off. And sometimes there's one underneath the outer one that's a little bit not quite right. So there we have the two pieces of onion, and they need slicing very, very thinly. Now, if you look at the onion from top to bottom, you see a lot of lines going from top to bottom like that. Don't cut with those lines. Turn it there. I usually have the root at this end, and then I slice it very, very thinly into half moon shapes. And it's important we try to cut this onion as thin as we can, because we're going to caramelize it. If it's cut in thick chunks, it'll take forever to caramelize. So you can see now, there we are. I'll show you that. See how thin it is? I'll just do the other half, and then we'll be all ready to start making the gravy. will. We'll just separate all those little rings. And because they're all of an even size, we're going to get them cooked all at the same time. So let's get on with making the gravy. Now I've got the pan on a very low heat, and I'm going to add the butter and the oil. Followed by the onions. We give them a good mix round, get them all coated in the oil and butter. Now we're going to cook this on a very low heat for quite a long time. It's going to take about 10 minutes before we get the colour we want it to be. We want to caramelise the onions without burning them. So make sure it's on a lowish heat and keep stirring them occasionally to make sure they're not starting to burn. You see that? Now the onions are starting to soften, and they will start to get a little bit of colour on them, but remember they need to go translucent before they start colouring. We don't want to start burning them. You can see the consistency now that we're getting. They're going nice and mushy. Now I'm sure you can see now it's taking on a nice golden colour. Don't know whether you can see that on the camera or not, can you? Nice golden colour. So at this stage we're going to add the flour. Mix that in so it's all coated with the oil and the butter that's in the bottom there. Technically we're making what's called a roux, which is what you do with the flour and the butter when you're making a white sauce. But in this case we're making a brown roux because we want to cook it out a little bit more than we normally would and get a little bit more colour on it. See that it's coming all nicely browny. And once we get it to this stage, cook it out well. Once we get it to this stage, we're now going to add the stock. Now remember what I said, I haven't added any salt to this yet because my stock has some salt in it. So I'll taste it afterwards before we finish it. When I make my own stock, I roast the bones off first and then boil them with some veg. I don't put any seasoning in. It's got no salt at all in, so I know exactly what I'm doing. But when I buy stock like this, some's got, as I said before, some has salt in it and some hasn't. It'll tell you on the packet. If you use a stock cube, they've always got salt in. Just remember that. Now, we've got that mixed up well. We're going to bring that up to the boil now. Turn the heat right up. As you can see there, it's coming up to the boil now. So I'm going to put in my black pepper. I like black pepper, so I'm going to give it a good shot there. You put in what you like. Now it's boiling. We're going to turn it down to a simmer. Let me get it turned down to a simmer. And we want to let that reduce now by about probably a third. It's now thickening up nicely. Now you may be one of those people who like your gravy thick, or you may like it very thin. It's up to you. Once you get to this stage, you've reduced it. If it's too thin for you, you can reduce it a little more. If it's too thick, then you can add a little drop more water or a little stock if you have any left. So we're just going to leave that simmering now for a couple of minutes and see how it goes. And there we have it. It's reduced now by 1/3. Don't know whether you can see the consistency there. It's quite nice, smooth gravy with the beautiful caramelized onions as well. So that's ready. We'll turn the heat off and we'll carry on. And now we're going to add 1/8 of a teaspoon, that's all, just a little drop, 1/8 of a teaspoon of the cider vinegar. Now if you haven't got cider vinegar, as I explained to you before, you can actually put a bit of lemon juice, or if you've got some Worcestershire sauce, you can use that as well. Now I'm going to have a taste and see how we're going to see if we need any salt in it. Not sure whether we do or not, because as I explained, my stock had some. No, that doesn't need any salt at all. It's all ready to go. So now I'll show you how I'm going to serve it up. And this is what I'm serving my gravy with tonight. Good old British bangers and mash. And there we have it. Doesn't that look delicious? Well, if you've enjoyed the video, go underneath and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, press the subscribe button, and when you do, you'll see a little bell icon at the side. If you click on that, it'll remind you every time I put up a new video, so you won't miss one. If you have any comments, please leave those underneath the video as well. So it's Mr. Paul saying bye for now, and I'll see you next time.